small miracle when everything comes together and we go live, right?
It's always a small miracle with technology. You're like, oh, it's going to work, and then it doesn't work.
And then it doesn't work. Yeah, totally. Excellent. Well, we are here today again with coffee, and everything, Christy and crew.
It's always.
And
sorry, that was my volume.
That's okay. The crew today at the moment is Stephanie and me, and hopefully Gina Wagstaff will be joining us here in just a few moments. However, if you haven't caught us before, Christy is usually our head ops over here, and she usually runs the show, but she is currently gallivanting around Paris.
For a month, living her best life, right?
Yep. Living it up, and she is doing the whole very French thing of drinking wine while she is watching us. So we wish her much fun in Paris while she's hanging out there, and I'm very much enjoying her Instagram posts. Those are very creative. Yeah, so fun. So very briefly, I think if people have seen this before, great. If not, let's tell them who we are and where we're from. You go first.
Okay, I'm Stephanie Brackett. Thanks, Elizabeth. Stephanie Brackett. I'm the COO of Anderson Hicks Group out of Idaho Falls, Idaho, and I've been with my team for almost 9 years.
Awesome. I'm Elizabeth Gilbert. I am COO of Ron Henderson and Associates, and I've been with Ron since 2010, so I'll be in 9 years in November. And I was with another team before that, so add on another 5 years to that, and it's been a long time. So I think I have a few more gray hairs now, definitely because of this job.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I have to go once a month to get my gray hairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a wonderful hair colorist. Yes.
That's funny. Okay, Gina just messaged me back, and I said, are you having trouble hopping on? And she said, I am. They're working on our internet. So she's trying. She'll join us when she can.
Okay. Maybe she can use her phone.
Maybe.
There's an app for that, surprisingly.
I'll tell her.
Or not surprisingly.
Tell her to use her phone. All right, perfect.
Awesome. Okay.
But we can get started with that.
Pull up.
She's on our internet, so she's trying. She'll join us when she can.
Okay. Maybe she can use her phone. I can't seem to pull up Facebook so I can see the comments.
I've got Facebook up.
Okay, good. Then I'll let you field the comments.
So yep, I see Casey's watching. Hi, Casey.
Hooray.
Nancy McCabe Gold is on here. Kayla Slice is on here. Hey, Kayla. And Maricela Palmberg's on here. So we've got people watching. And Christy's on. Oh, that turkey. Yes. She's watching from Paris. Hi, Christy.
Right. Checking up on us.
Yeah, so checking up on us, making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. So this is very interactive. We want you guys to ask your questions as we're chatting. We've got some topics that we're definitely going to cover for you. And as we're speaking, ask your questions. If you're watching this on the replay and you have questions about what we're talking about, type them into the comments, tag one of us, whomever you're asking the question to, and we will go back and reply to you. So whether you're live or on the replay, we want to hear from you and we want to interact with you. So today's topic was recruiting, hiring, onboarding, retention, all the good stuff when it comes to people joining our team, how you get them here and how you teach them, train them, and how to keep them. So a few of the questions that we started to come up with when it comes to this topic was, how do you know who to hire and when, and what are you doing to get clear on that? So where do you start, Stephanie? Where do you think, okay, now it's time to hire for this particular position?
Generally, the numbers tell us when we're supposed to hire, and like you guys know from previous things, we track a lot of information. So if we know that we have too many leads for the number of agents that are servicing them right now, we need to hire more agents. If we have too many tasks for the ops staff that we have right now, then we need to hire more ops staff. So we start with numbers that tell us who we need, and then we go after them that way. So it's definitely on our team, it's numbers based. It's never a gut feel like, I feel like we should probably hire this person, or it seems like maybe we should. It's factual based.
Gotcha. So, and one thing I've heard you say too is that when you do your planning for the next year, you gather from each agent on your team how many, what volume they want to do or what number of units they want to do. And then the team leadership comes up with their own number. And if the agent's numbers all added together don't match what the number the leadership comes up with, you simply go out and hire more agents to make up that difference.
Yep, we're missing the who at that point. So we've got the what and we just are missing the who. We did that 2 years ago on Anderson Group when I was just Anderson Group before we merged the teams. Oh, Gina's popping on, yay! Before we merged, our goal for the year was 400 units and our agents' units added up were only like 320. So we knew we needed to get 1 or 2 buyer's agents to make up that additional 80 units.
Gotcha. Now, of the people that you bring on, when you
onboard,
hey!
Oh my gosh. This is live, y'all. This is not like planned. So we have issues with internet just like everybody else.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. The one day I need the internet in my office to be working, they literally are out in the hallway working on it. And I was like, people, you're killing me right now. But I'm here.
Awesome. Well, Gina, let's just interrupt right now and tell us where you are from and what your role is where you're at.
So I am from beautiful Port Coquitlam, British Columbia in Canada. Let's see, I've been doing real estate administration for the last 6 years. I've been on 2 separate teams in that time, and currently have in the last year moved to a couple of agents that are partners, kind of high producing agents, and they have asked me to come in as a partner. So it's the first time that I've kind of gone out of the employee role and have true blue partnership in the business. And so I am their director of operations, and yeah, so that's who I am and
where you are. Awesome.
Where I am.
She's in Canada, eh?
I'm in Canada.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Okay, so we're talking about recruiting, onboarding, and Stephanie was telling us that when the leadership has a big number that they want to meet and they don't have enough agents whose collective goals are less than that number, they know they need to go out and hire more agents. Mm-hmm. And so my follow-up question to that is, how are you, when an agent sets a goal, are you feeding them leads, or how do you keep them busy?
So our team, it's 50-50. We will provide them 50% as many leads as their goal is. So if their goal is, we're actually basically going to supply them 3 deals a month, enough leads to get them 3 closed deals a month.
Okay.
And then they need to provide the other 3 or 6 or 10 or 12 or however big they want.
Whatever their goal is.
If they can stay in rotation consistently, I'm thinking about one of our newer agents that he has 10 pendings right now. He joined us brand new to real estate in April. So new to real estate, he's got 10 pendings right now. He's already had about 9 closings and he's got 10 pendings. I am betting he's been in rotation almost every day since he joined the team. And the team has provided all 19 of the, he maybe has 1 or 2 that are his right now because he's new to real estate.
Yeah.
So if they can stay in rotation, the team will provide them enough deals to meet however big their goal is, we will get them there.
Gotcha.
As long as they're also providing.
Perfect. So how are you finding the people to hire to your team to make up those numbers that the leadership wants to meet? Where are you finding those people?
A couple different places. We like the medical industry a lot, medical sales. We have currently 3 people on our team that were ex-medical sales people. A lot of times the medical sales people, you'll find they're very good salespeople and they're used to making $200,000 to $300,000 a year. So they have to replace that income.
Yeah. And
they're sick of traveling because medical sales territories are big. It's a big territory.
Yep.
So these guys are tired of traveling. They've been doing it 8 to 10 years and they need to, I'd much rather go out and hire someone who needs to replace $200,000 in income than a $40,000 a year kid who's like, I'm okay making 40.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you prefer to hire outside of real estate rather than inside. You're not looking for agents, you're looking for salespeople who want to come over.
Correct.
And do something different. Yeah.
And we will take agents. Like the one we just hired, we grabbed him. I went as the COO of our team, I went down and visited the new agent class that was going on in our basement in our market center. We have a trainer that does new agent classes to get them licensed in the state of Idaho. So I went down and visited, and this guy came up to me afterwards and said, I would love to talk to someone about joining your team once I'm done with this. And I turned him over to our sales manager, and he joined our team last Monday. So
that's
we
awesome.
do go to new agent classes as well. So we will get them that have already kind of started the process, but they have a track record of sales prior to just becoming an agent.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Gina, what about you and your team? Are you, where are you finding your people to hire? Where are you looking, or what's your approach to that?
Yeah, and when we spoke before, our sort of recruiting or our needs are very, very different. We have a very different sort of goal and mindset around our business, which is we're not trying to grow into a big team. We're not trying to, we have maybe by some standards is a little bit lower sales count, anywhere between 80 and 100. And between the three of us, we can manage 80 to 100. But with that being said, we also recognize at certain times of the year, we have pockets where we need help. So we get very, very clear about what it is that we are needing for how long. And then we really find the person. So oftentimes what we'll see is we'll watch agents within our office, maybe newer agents who want exposure into just production and getting their feet in just doing the actual work of real estate. And if we see that they're talent, we'll pull them in for the period of time that we need somebody to service whatever at that time that we need. And that's really mutually benefited, has benefited us on both ends. And then the same thing, sometimes administrative work, I'll just pick very specific things that are on my plate that are either one, getting missed due to the volume of work we're doing, and or client events that we don't want to have go through the cracks just because we're super busy, and I'll find somebody specifically for that task, which in some ways is really easy because I don't need that person to do lots of things. I just need them to be good at these specific things, which tends to reduce what I need to train. So our team is a little bit different in the regards, but the times that I have had to advertise, it's been Indeed. Indeed is really big up here in our area. Craigslist is good too, but we tend to use agents that are within our office. But again, we're not really asking them to be full-time agents on a team. We're asking them to do very specific things for a very specific amount of time for us.
Awesome. Yeah, we do the same thing. We use Indeed when we're looking for admin staff. When it comes to hiring agents, we like to hire more from within the industry. So we're using broker metrics, which we get from, our market center administrator. And we're looking at agents in the last year or so who have sold, somewhere between 4 and maybe a dozen houses, and who is looking for more time and less paperwork. So we want that, we are really trying to tap into that pain point in our Indeed ads and in our marketing, especially on Facebook. We just know so many agents that we're friends with on Facebook that really works well. And then we're super hammering our mortgage lenders. We have a couple close ones that we work with, and we know they work outside. Even of Keller Williams, they have a lot of, brokerages they work with. And so they have such good relationships themselves with agents that they know when those agents are having their own pain points to say, hey, you should totally come talk to Ron Henderson and Associates. They're looking for people like you. And I promise you, they're going to make half of your problems go away just by joining the team and getting rid of all this paperwork and stuff that you're doing on, crazy 9 a.m. to midnight or 9 p.m. to midnight when you're spending, trying to catch up from the rest of your day. So that's worked really well for us. It's funny that you mentioned that, Stephanie. We did have a medical device salesman join our team when he got laid off from that industry. He did have some headhunters when he joined our team trying to get him back into it. He's like, I'm kind of tired of the traveling. And he was actually with us for 6 years. And then out of the blue, a headhunter came and found him again and made him an offer he couldn't refuse. So he did leave, but after 6 years. I mean, that's
was he high performing for those 6 years? Was he?
You know what? He was not, actually.
Interesting.
He was very good at taking someone that we would give him and say, this person needs to see houses. He worked as a buyer's agent, and very good at forming the relationship. The clients loved him. Like, he was very good at relationships, not so good at the calling them afterwards to see who else they would know that might need to buy a house.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he did a lot of sales, and those were the sales that we handed him. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But he was not a good lead generator.
Right. Right. The one thing I like about hiring people from a professional industry like that is they're not afraid to work. They treat it as a job.
Yeah.
They're not the people that, are like, oh, I became a real estate agent because I want more freedom in my life. I want to do what I want to do. They will show up. I mean, I can tell you right now, those are my guys that show up every morning. They're there every day for Winning Minute. They're in the office in the morning for lead gen. They can show up suited up, they're in their suits and they show up and they get to work. So
it's interesting that you say that, because it's awesome being in the office, because we get to observe the behavior of an agent, and we watch them in the bullpen. We're listening to them. Are they here all the time? And it's really, sometimes we will give people, we'll just ask them, hey, listen, we have this inspection that has, we have to have somebody who's sitting there. I know it's not glamorous or anything, but you know what, you can be exposed to an inspector, and yes, it's going to be 3 hours of your time. And the people that him and haw, the agents that are like, I don't really want to, then we just, okay, duly noted. But the ones that are like, absolutely, I'd love to go do that. I'd love to be in that experience. Those are the ones that we just start saying, like, when the next opportunity comes for us, that we want to, for a 3-month period of time, have an agent come and just help us and have exposure. Those are the ones that we've marked down as people as like, absolutely, we're going to go back to them, because they see it in exactly the same way that you were just saying. Like, it's the opportunity, it's the part of the job that, nobody really likes to go sit into an inspection, but so it's interesting to be able to observe that.
And that's great that you bring that up, because I don't think a lot of people think of business that way, the way you guys have structured it, where you can have almost like temp agents join your team just to fill a void that you're feeling right then. And that's a total possibility across, anyone could do that. Absolutely. Hey, I'm going to use you for a little while. I've got way too many buyers and I don't have enough agents. Can you come join our team for the summer? And then, of course, if you decide they're a great fit, there's nothing saying that you couldn't keep them on, but you're not obligated to keep them on. You can easily move them back.
And I think that comes from, I mean, we've talked about that. I think it's an interesting shift in thinking that because I had been on a team that was about growth, lots of growth, and we had lots of plans to expand and bring people on. And then it's an unusual shift in being creative in the way that you see leverage and think about leverage, when the goal is not growth like by people. The goal is, where is our sweet spot inside our business where we take the maximum amount of money but have the maximum amount of time towards our personal life. That's our big why. And how do we utilize people in a different way so that we continue to make the most amount of money but living within this zone? It's a shift in thinking around leverage.
Yeah. Hey, and Rosie had a question. She said, what does the compensation look like for those agents that temporarily join or assist? How do you compensate them?
Mm-hmm. It really depends on what specifically so for example, we just did that. This is why it's top of mind. We had an inspection that Josh or Aaron couldn't attend. And so we paid a particular agent $250 to sit there. So sometimes it's very specific. We say, I need a body to be sitting there and I need to basically use your license because I have to have a licensed agent there. So I'll pay specifically per activity. That's kind of the mode that we're in right now. Summer months, we split. So they'll get a certain percentage off of the commission for those specific deals. But we have a big, huge structure around that. So this particular listing needs somebody to attend all of the showings, right? And so that's worth X amount of money when the deal closes. And so it's paid that way. and we leverage it out that way. And when the time is done, the time is done. When the deal is done, the deal is done. And so it's exposure. They get exposure to things that they wouldn't be doing because they don't have any listings.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And then Casey had a follow-up question. Do you preface their involvement with the same requirements as your non-temp agents? So I guess what she's asking is, what is the expectation? How do you set expectations right up front with them as to how they are to act when they're representing your team?
Right. Well, we have 2 agents that are kind of our go-to agents right now. I know it kind of doesn't mean anything, but Josh and Aaron, we often have people who are seeking us out, who often want to work for them. And one of the things that Josh is known for is his very demanding standards. And so we basically say, this is the standard in which we want you to show up. Here is the expectation and communication with our clients. We're very clear with our sellers and our buyers. Honestly, we use more people for our sellers than we do for our buyers, because it's just easier to manage the expectation. You're going to do the showings. You're going to do, you need to communicate the showing feedback to our sellers. You are going to go and put a lockbox on the house. Whatever those specific things are, it's just very specific. And there's a conversation. The 2 that we work with, we've worked with them enough now that they know what the standard is. They just kind of know what the expectation is of what we want from them and how they're going to be reimbursed for that.
Okay.
I don't know if I really answered the question.
I think so. And she said in terms of receiving leads, but it sounds like you're not dishing off leads to them generally. You're partnering with them on a particular transaction.
Absolutely. So here, and again, we have another gentleman who has approached us and said, hey, listen, there's a long periods of time where I'm gone, but I'm holding on to these listings. And I need them to be serviced in my absence. And he's horrible at paperwork. God bless him, but he's horrible at paperwork. So we're in conversations with him about that we would co-list with him. So when he's here, the expectation is he's servicing those listings. He's taking the showing requests, he's doing all of that stuff, and he's negotiating those contracts, and I do his paperwork. In the periods of time when he is gone, we take full ownership, and what we get for that is 50-50. And so we just get really, really, really creative about how we see leverage and our expertise. I mean, that's the other part of it too, is we've hit a level of expertise with the 3 of us. We each know our own roles so well, that part of that is people just want to observe. They want to know how that all works and how that all functions. It's more, I think, for a lot of agents, the way that we do business is more reminiscent to the way that they would also run their business. Instead of it being like a big team, there's a lot of things that we do that are really simple, like really, really simple, that if you were a single agent, that you too could do and should do, really. So it's exposure, really. That's the trade-off for a lot of these newer agents.
I love that. And then just one more quick question before we move on topics. Someone was asking if for the $250 for an inspection, the sit-in and inspection, are you paying that immediately or are you paying at closing?
No, that gets paid immediately.
Okay.
That's just to us, that's an operating expense.
Right. But if you're splitting something, it's at closing. But if it's an expense to just go open a house or, yeah.
Okay. Right.
Makes sense. Awesome. Yeah.
And we tend to do those kinds of things on our, in our slower season, where we, for the most part, can manage the workload, that's not a really big deal. Where we tend to do the splits tend to be in our busier months, like our May, June, and July, which tend to be busier, where we're maybe holding a lot of listings at that time, that we would have a specific agent and we line them up with those listings and we say, for the life of these listings, you will get a split, but here is the expectation. Now, if the listing doesn't sell until September or October, it doesn't sell until September or October. They're still on that listing because they are still getting a split of that listing.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So what does your hiring process look like? Do you use career visioning, and with some of the questions that we had along with that, do you deviate from it, and what happens when you deviate?
We do use career visioning for the most part. I can tell you a fail forward we had just this past April. We brought on a builder slash agent that was just in our market center. She was a builder and looking for a place. She kept saying, I'm only one person. I can only do so much, but I'm a builder and I have all these houses I want to list. And the guys were like, yeah, it's tons of business. Let's just bring her on. And they brought her on, not through our normal process at all. Like completely bypassed it. And it was an absolute nightmare, absolute nightmare. And we parted ways about 4 weeks ago. I mean, and it was just turmoil. So yes, it was one of those, hey, I told you so type things. But I didn't really want to say that because I told them it was about 2 weeks in and I said, you guys, I am not sure we made a great decision because she's one of those people that I can't get a straight answer out of. If I ask her a question, she talks around the question for about 15 minutes and I'm left thinking, I still don't have the answer to a very basic question like, how many active listings do you have right now?
Yeah.
Right. So we just talk around and around and around. So yes, for the most part, we do use career visioning. And when we have not done it the right way, it has bit us in the butt. Yeah. That was a painful lesson to learn.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said, especially for someone that you don't know or know just in passing. The questions that process asks it's a getting to know you, but it's also discovering how they think, what they believe, what their values are, and then assessing, do those beliefs and values align with that of the team? And when you ask the right questions, you can suss that out pretty easily. I will say that is something that I insist on, and that's why I'm part of the process. So I am the one actually asking the questions and writing down the answers while my lead agent is in the room with me, and he is observing the whole thing. So he doesn't get to ask questions. He doesn't get to save them when they, pause for more than 3 seconds. It's just to observe so that when we come back and collaborate later, while I'm looking down and writing something, they could have some sort of facial expression or a body language that says something different than what they're actually saying that my lead agent can pick up on because he's not so involved in writing down what they're saying. That has worked out really well for us. I've even vetoed someone that he wanted to pull the trigger and hire this woman. And I completely was like, no way. Because like you said, it was a simple question. And I felt like after 15 minutes of her talking, it was all I heard was drama and how it was the other person and some crazy story. And then I never answered your question.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't have that. She was so unlike the rest of us, but my lead agent just saw her as a nice person. I'm like, we're not here to hire nice people. Like, yes, we are, but they have to be nice and they have to have some sort of talent and skill and something for us to work with.
Right. That's a permission to play type value. Be nice. Right. Yeah. That's not a core value. It's like you literally have to have it to even be on our team. Right. If you're not nice, you don't belong here. And we've hired not nice people before and had to let them go because they just were not nice.
Yeah.
Casey wanted to know, at what point do you bring the mega in to the interview process? And I'll tell you what I do, and then you guys can. For the operations side of the business, the mega's never in. I hire who I hire, and I still do the panel of 5 or 6 people from the team. I generally have my CRO in there, my chief revenue officer, my sales manager, couple people from the ops team. I'll grab an ISA because they're going to be working with ISAs. And we do a 5 or 6 person group interview as one of the final steps. But the mega, he's never been in one of the group interviews for anybody I've hired on the new team. For agents, that's usually the last interview. The CRO does all of the career visioning stuff. And then the last interview is with Mike and Sean. So my CEO and Mike, the chief advisor, that's the very last interview for agents. And they give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Awesome. So Elizabeth.
We do the same for admin. It's all me. My lead agent will come in towards the end and sort of give the vision speech, as in, this is why I started the company. This is what we're about. This is the type of person I'm interested in having on the team. Usually we only get to that point if I've already decided, like, I'm 95% there towards hiring this person. I just want to see you give this vision and see how they react and see if they buy into that. And then if they're cool with that, then they're a hire. But it's, like I said, 95% of it, it's all me. The agent side, it's both of us together with every single agent, unless I'm out of town or unless he's out of town, in which case, one of us will do it for that one particular part. But because there's 5 or 6 parts to the whole process, both of us are usually involved in almost all of those. So yeah, together we do that.
And that's how it was. Yeah. I was going to say that's how it was when we were a smaller team, more your size. It was always me and Sean hiring everybody. So this is the difference between a single agent with an admin. Usually the agent just hires the agents.
Yeah.
Once you have multiple people, then it's usually the mega and the CEO, CI or COO, whatever you have in that position. And then once you get big like me, I don't do anything with the agents other than help him get the CV stuff together.
Gotcha. Yeah. Gina, when you're trying to decide, when you need a one-off special project, or, it's summer months and you really need help with showings or inspections, I know you have sort of a core group of people in your market center that you like to use.
Kind of pull from.
Yeah. Who decides on that core? And I imagine that flexes a little bit of who goes in and who comes out. When someone new comes in, who makes the decision of, I think we should give this person a shot?
Yeah, when it comes to admin, Josh and Aaron, like, I don't want to say that they could care less, but they just do. Gina, you figure it out. That's your gig. Off you go. When it comes to the agents, I think the difference is when you work so closely on a smaller team, does the person fit what we like, our jam really is like what we call it. Like, do they can they flow with us? We're a wacky group of people. And so you gotta be able to kind of keep up with us. And so I think we all just sort of give our feedback. Like, does this feel like it's going to be a good fit? The other thing that we often assess is that 99% of our business comes from our database. We have a very specific sort of way of being. We talk about what is our energy that we're throwing out to our database. And so those people who we bring on, we absolutely discuss, do they contain our vibe? Will they, when they go out, emulate what it is that we try to do ourselves? And so we kind of all discuss it. And if they would kind of be our jam, they would be our vibe, they would give off our energy, then we absolutely will do it. So it's not formal, it ain't pretty, but it works.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for how you interact with people intuitively. And there is some of that vibration energy that if you're not in sync with someone, it's just not going to be a good fit, and they're not going to enjoy doing the task that you've asked them to do if they're not already in alignment with you on the same level like that. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So what about hiring your replacement? We have a lot of ops people on the call who want to move up from maybe being the first executive assistant into an ops manager type of role. When does that happen, and how do you decide what to give away as you start from A and you want to get to Z?
I chunked mine off in steps. Like, I literally started as it was me and a transaction coordinator. So I did have someone doing TC work for me when I joined the team, but I was the listing manager, the listing coordinator, the photographer, the stager, the executive assistant. I was all of those things all rolled up into one. So the runner, I chunked them off one at a time. So the runner was the first thing to go. I said, I'm going to get someone that's going to install signs, lock boxes, do all this stuff. And I chunked that job off. Then it was photography. And it was, I'm going to hire just a contract labor person to take pictures. I don't have time.
Yep.
Then it was, okay, I need a listing coordinator that can actually coordinate all this. So I hired a listing coordinator. And then, so I just chunked them all off one at a time as a whole position at once. I didn't try and hire a part-time person just to take a bunch of crap off my plate.
Yeah.
I chunked it off in positions.
Yep. That makes sense. I've essentially done the same thing. My first hire was a transaction coordinator, and that was the first thing that I wanted gone. I love the paperwork and I hate the paperwork. Like, I love it because I am a high C. I love seeing that stuff just beautifully filled out. I love fixing all the errors, but that stuff really frustrates me too. Like when I see people like turn in garbage contracts, like I just want to start like throwing pens and stuff.
I just hate it, and I just hate it. There's no love there for me.
Right? Right. So that was the one I had to give away first. And I know some people are the opposite. They want to keep that because that's where you see all the money come in, right? Because when the agents are getting paid, that's the backbone of the business is, we have to make sure we're getting paid on time and what money is going where. So I think admin sometimes want to keep that role first. And I always think that's a mistake. I think that's one of the easiest parts to give away because you can contract that out too to a third party TC company, just like you would a photographer or a stager. And it's not, it doesn't have to be an employee. It can be an expense. So I think that's a mistake to hold on to that for as long as some admin do. Mine was always, I love the marketing side of things. I like the creativity of it. I like that there's not a whole lot of people involved in it. It's, usually me and whatever I want to do with it, run it by my lead agent and we're good to go. So that was always my draw. And then yes, everything else I've just chunked it off as needed. I'd love to hire an events coordinator to take that off my plate too, because that's not one of my favorites either.
I'm feeling you on that one.
Right.
Yeah. I actually have an interesting, so when I was working with the other agent, before I transitioned over, I actually was being coached by Christy during this process. I had already hired the admin to come in, and I had chosen to divide my roles on, I was going to give Jody all of the working in the business tasks. And I was going to retain all the activities that would be deemed working on the business. Because there's something to be said about, when a deal has to be processed, it has to be transacted. That's the thing you can't push off to the side. And so what gets pushed off to the side is growth, is, managing your database in a way that's efficient and effective. I feel like working inside the business is the death of creativity. And so for me, it was, I have all these great ideas. I have all of this, all these things that I want to do inside this business. And that part of my brain isn't being allowed to work because I'm trying to figure out commissions and did inspection get done and whatever. And so that's how I had made the decision around anything that was going to be the death of my creativity of building this business needed to be off of my plate. And I just divided it. If it's in or on, if it's on the business, it was mine. If it was in, it was Jody's. And so that's kind of how we made that transition in hiring.
Yep. That's awesome. You guys write that down. Working in the business is the death of creativity.
That's a good one. Good one, Gina.
Yeah. So let's talk about onboarding then. Gina, when we were talking earlier in our prep session, you said, make no assumption that you need to be intentional about your onboarding process. What do you mean by that?
Well, again, I think that it's actually harder when you're a smaller team, when it's just you and a mega, or say like you and a very, very small team. I actually think it's harder, or it's easier to be lazy. It's easier to be lazy in those circumstances because you just, you just hire somebody and you don't have to worry. Yeah, you don't have to,
it'll be fine.
Like, I'm just going to have this person sitting next to me, and by osmosis, they're going to learn what they need to learn. And it's all going to be great and wonderful. And we're going to all be one happy family and c'est la vie. So for me, I think that when you're smaller, you can just be really super lazy. So I think it's even more important to have a process in place so that you don't get lost, and you don't not hold yourself accountable. Because if you do it by osmosis, 6 months can go by, 8 months can go by, and all of a sudden you're looking across the desk and going, I don't really know fundamentally if you know what you're supposed to be doing. And so it doesn't have to be a labyrinth. It doesn't have to be this crazy system, process, whatever. It literally could be, it was a checklist, a 30, 60, 90 checklist on Google Drive. And really for what it was worth, it was actually to keep me accountable. I mean, they had their jobs to do. They had, you know, I'm thinking of Jody in my mind. There were certain things that she had to do. But really it was for me as, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing to determine in 30 days, does this person possess the skills? In 60 days, same thing, absolutely same thing as career visioning and onboarding and all of that stuff. But don't make any mistake when you're small that you shouldn't follow that same process. It's almost even more imperative.
Dude, where were you 5 years ago? Because I could have used that advice. I've had the same experience of, you know, 8 months from now, I'm getting questions that I'm like, I'm pretty sure we talked about this on day 30, but I didn't have it like documented that we had this discussion.
Yeah.
So I didn't know whether to blame them and a lack of inability to learn, or me on my lack of ability to train. Right.
And there's nothing worse than doubting yourself. There's nothing worse than getting like 8 months down the road and going like, what, like, how have I missed this? And then you feel like you feel like you owe them an extra 30 days or an extra 60 days. And now you're a year into it only to find out, you know what, had I been strategic in my approach with this, in 30 days, I would have known this. And now you're all starting all over again. And the only way I learned that lesson was I made a bad hire, and I could have known within 30 days that I should have let her go. And I didn't. And it was hard. It was hard. And I remember firing her, letting her go, and feeling like this is the absolute worst feeling in the world. I will never set myself up for such an experience in my life. So I get it. It's excruciating.
It was. Stephanie, you use Brivity, don't you?
Yeah, we use Brivity, and we have a massive onboarding plan. It's 130 tasks to onboard someone and get them to their 90th day. There's 24 class curriculums that they go through, 24 quizzes. So it's massive, but honestly, you could do it on a much smaller scale. It doesn't have to be this massive. When we built it, basically the questions that we ask ourselves when we went through so we did the whole 5-step that everybody's heard me always talk about. What's the purpose of the onboarding system? What's the vision outcome? How can we say it's done? And then when we did the brainstorming session, it was really brainstorming around what do they need to have? What do they need to do? And what do they need to know at 90 days to make them successful in this business? And that's where all the tasks come from. So what do I need to get to them? What do they need to have? They need to have a computer that's set up with all the bookmarks that we have. They need to have access to our database. They need to have this. They need to have that. They need to upload their sphere list. They need to get that to us. They need to go get headshots taken, right? They need to have business cards. And then what do they need to know? And that is all the tests and quizzes in class. And that's how we built it out. And that's how it ended up 130 tasks long. So it's not all the tasks are for them. Some of them are for me, some of them are for, and then of course we try and create moments within that where they feel like this is an awesome team and I want to be here and I feel like I can succeed here because of what they've done for us. And someone asked the question, can you share some of your 30, 60, 90-day goals for new agents? And ours are all around getting them into production as fast as possible. So they aren't really goals more than they are tasks. So shadow this, do this, go to this class, attend this inspection, attend these showing appointments, go on a listing appointment. So they have all these tasks that they do. They're not written in a 30, 60, 90 format, but at the end of their 30 days, they have a check-in with the CRO and they review all the tasks they've completed. And those are basically their 30, 60, and 90-day goals. We just had a guy that we hired. He hit his 30 days on, he got his cupcake. We give him a cupcake at their 30 days. So he got his cupcake last staff meeting and he turned in his first contract this past yesterday. So in 30 days, he's got someone under contract.
Yeah.
And we want him into production that fast.
That's awesome. That's a huge win for someone too, is their first contract is a huge milestone. And
then we do balloons with their first contract. Yep. He ended up with a giant bouquet of balloons at staff meeting yesterday for his first contract.
You know, something that you do with the quizzes is it's called check for understanding. And, you know, as agents, when we came on, if you weren't part of a team, essentially you come on and all you do is take classes. And if you think about the classes in our market center, you go and you learn how to do an open house, you learn how to write up a contract, but no one checks to make sure that you know it. No one checks for understanding. They don't give you a quiz at the end and say, okay, take this quiz. How many open house signs do you need to put up to have a successful open house? What are the right scripts you use to get someone to sign in? No one checks for that. So I love your process in that in order to be successful, not only do I have to teach it to you, but I have to make sure that you learned it. And here's how we're going to make sure that you learned it. So in case I didn't do a good job of teaching it, we can backtrack and go, okay, let's go through this a different way. Not the same way. They didn't get it the first time.
Right.
Do it a different way so that it does make sense. Yep. I love that. Yeah.
That's been kind of a game changer for us because it definitely does check for understanding.
Yeah. And that, the one thing that we absolutely make our agents master is the listing process, the listing presentation. They have to memorize it. So that's definitely a check for understanding moment, is that you have to sit down with our lead agent who pretends to be the seller. You're the listing agent, and you have to give verbatim the listing presentation that the lead agent wrote himself. So it's a very stringent process that if you're going to take listings on our team, it's got to be nailed down to the voice inflection. Like he will correct you and say, nope, you got to say it this way. Like it's that important that you say it this way, or else they won't get it, and you won't. I love that. Listing. Yeah.
We do have a listing certification process. They don't even get to start that until their third 90 days.
Nice.
So the first 60 days is buyer stuff, and they get buyer certified. The last 30 days is their listing certification, and it's 10 scripts. It's the same thing as you guys. They have a playbook. It's here's all the stuff, here's the 10 scripts, here's the process. You have to explain the process to us and deliver the listing presentation flawlessly.
Yep.
Yeah. One thing one thing that's come into my mind is that I think I'm always looking at people and assessing, do you see the task that you're supposed to be doing, but do you also see the big picture? And so I think it's really important that, to understand that there's different ways in which somebody can show up for you. Somebody can fill out a contract and be rock solid on a contract, but if they don't understand and can be anticipatory in terms of what does that mean? What are the next 5 steps? How do you predict what potentially is coming down the pipeline? And so I think there is teaching people specifically, like, this is why it's important for it to be this way, but I want you to look at it from a global standpoint in terms of, personally, I feel like that's one of the biggest skills that an administrator can possess. Like when I'm hiring somebody from an administrative point of view, I'm actually hiring for their capacity to see what's coming down the pipeline 5 steps from now. Because a lot of the times you can look over a contract, you can make sure everything's dotted and but can you anticipate what that customer or client or whatever needs and get ahead of them? Because there are people who can't do that, who are so beeline focused on this, that what happens is they get themselves into trouble because they didn't anticipate. So I think that's another thing too. There's what I call black and white knowledge. And then there's this really colorful knowledge that's the juicy part that I want to see people possess. And for me, I always kind of build in when I'm training somebody, like when I get hired to train new administrators for other agents, that's what I'm looking for. I get the black and white. I understand it's necessary, but where's the colorful, juicy thinking that's going to make you just that rock star administrator?
I was recently, I can't remember what I was looking at, but I'm sure it's a meme somewhere, and I can't remember who said this, But he said the optimist builds the airplane and the pessimist builds the parachute. So we all have our own creative ways of doing things, but that being able to anticipate, okay, if I build this airplane, what happens when people fall out, right? We need this parachute. So having the foresight, and I'm such a huge pessimist, like that, obviously at being a high C, I'm like, okay, if you leave a line blank on a contract, we could get sued and it could mean this, right? So that whole why behind, here's how I need you to fill out the contract and here's why is super important too. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Let's see, what else did we talk about? FAQs. So we talked about some pointers, checklists, things they need to learn, FAQs, checking for understanding, quizzes, and their knowledge across the board. So moving on to keeping them, what are we doing to keep the talented ones and release the others to industry?
I think first and foremost, just having a super strong team culture keeps people engaged in the team. We share gratitude every morning at 8:30 when we do our Winning Minute, it's a stand-up meeting. And I can't tell you, there's not a day that goes by during Winning Minute when gratitude is not shared between team members, where someone on the agent team says, I'm super grateful this morning for Connor, the ISA, or I'm super grateful for someone on the success team. There's so much gratitude amongst our team, and the people that, like, I can think of one agent in particular, and I don't think she'll last much longer on our team. And it's because she doesn't see the value in gratitude, first of all. She's in the morning to share.
Yeah.
And she doesn't fit the culture. She's become, and she was an existing member from before we merged. And I feel like everybody who didn't fit the culture has self-selected off the team. So far, she's the last remaining one. And then we have this just team of rock stars that want to be there every day, want to show up, and are helping create this energy that will continue to attract people to us and then keep the ones we have. They want to be there. We had an ISA who left to go do summer sales. He was with us for maybe 3 or 4 months before, right after the merge. Then he left to do summer sales, and he just came back about 2 weeks ago, not back to our company, just back in town. And his brother still worked for us. So he popped into our staff meeting, and he made it a point to tell all of us, I cannot believe the energy that this team has now, even the difference in energy from 3 months ago, or 4 months ago until now. And it's because the other people that were not cultural fits have since selected themselves off the team, and they're not there anymore. So I think keeping it is mostly about culture. And then it's, of course, also about team value. What value is the team providing to the agents? And that goes back to the quality of the leads we're giving them, the number of leads, knowing what their big why is and helping them fulfill that big why through what the team has to offer.
Yeah, we just had that conversation in the group coaching call that we just did yesterday. In fact, was, you know, when someone joins the team, their number one goal is obviously to make money, because that's how they support themselves and their family. And yet, as human beings, we all have a way deeper need and desire for other things, not just money. So it could be time with our family. It could be, you know, a desire to own a beach house or a lake house. It could be, you know, one of my husband's greatest goals in life was to own a Mustang. And, you know, not like a souped up, you know, $100,000 Mustang. It was a older one. And I think we ended up spending, $18,000 on it. But that's our third car. And because I kept feeding that dream of his, and this is what we do for our agents too, is what dream do you have that may or may not take a lot of money to fulfill that we can help you achieve? You know, I have a client care manager on my team now, and her kids are high school and middle school age, and she doesn't have a lot of money in savings. And that was one of her goals, is to start and build a savings account. So guess what our conversations are every week? How much money did you put in savings this week? So how, you know, I don't want to just build a career for an agent on the team. I want to help them build their life. And what can I do to hold them accountable to the things that they would love to see happen That's the value of joining the team. If I told you you were going to join this team and I was going to hold you accountable to achieving your biggest and best dreams, would you be interested in doing that?
I love that.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, I love that. Yep, that's awesome. Casey had a question. Paula had a question back a little ways we didn't catch. She said outsourcing virtual assistants versus actual hires for transaction coordinators. I don't know exactly what her question is. That's all it says, but I would say.
What are like the pros and cons, maybe? Is that like, sorry, just maybe asking what are the pros and cons of a virtual assistant over an actual in-house TC, maybe?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if Paula, if you want to get more specific, we can answer that. And then Casey asked Stephanie, back in the day before you were hands-off agents, who held them accountable, conducted, evaluated the training in the 30, 60, 90, when Mega will and will not, and no lead buyer's agent. Oh, so yeah, the Mega, that was his job. He was responsible for sales, Casey, on my team. He owned sales, I own ops. If the agents, he owned them. It was his responsibility to hold them accountable, not mine. I own the operations department. If he wants me to get the numbers of what they're doing so that he can have that conversation, I can provide the numbers, but he holds them accountable if he's managing the sales team. Oh, and then Paula Campbell said, yes, pros and cons for VAs versus actual hires. Mm-hmm. And that's probably a whole nother can of worms. I would say for us, the pros of having a VA is they're cheap. Right? They're cheap and they can do a lot of stuff for very inexpensive. The cons are they're not in-house. It's hard to maintain culture with someone who's across the ocean, and you have to have a lot of training videos to get them to be able to trained exactly how you want to do stuff.
I got nothing to offer on that. I've never had a VA. I've never had a VA, and
it's cheap leverage. I mean, if you can find a good one, it is cheap leverage for. I mean, I have a VA, and I leverage whatever I can off to her that doesn't need to be done in house.
Yeah.
They're really good for the transactional stuff, not as good for the relational stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
And because on our team, the admin negotiates the inspections. We're still doing that. It's still working great. That relationship needs to be established from the beginning in order to make that happen. So, one of the goals that our team has is that when people leave reviews, that they mention the people that they enjoyed working with most. And if I can get our transaction coordinator, which is, we call it a client care coordinator, mentioned in a review, I know she's done a fantastic, amazing job of building that relationship so that they would never hesitate to refer us down the road.
Yeah.
I don't think you get that with a VA or even a TC who might be in your area, in your state, that you could actually drive to see them, but they don't work specifically for your team.
For you, yep.
I don't think you would get that same feel, that same culture.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Awesome.
Yeah. I just want to mention, like, as I know in our meeting that we talked about culture, in that conversation, we gave the example of, like, you guys are really focusing on creating like the culture around like gratitude and community and all of that stuff. And I had brought up the fact that being on a smaller, and just like it just being me and two other people, we do not lack for family culture. We do not lack for gratitude for one another. I mean, we're absolutely very much in the trenches of that regard, where our culture, where we have to be very conscientious, is actually on the business side. That sometimes it's really easy to be a family and, help each other out. And what actually lacks is holding each other accountable for the business and the tasks that everybody is responsible for. And so for us, we really focus on, love me enough to hold me accountable if I'm dropping the ball. That's how we keep our culture in a small thing, in a small sort of team. So I would just say that to really broaden your horizons. I think most people think of like, how do you create culture? And it's always the ooey gooey, warm juiciness part that kind of gets conjured up. But absolutely, there's the other side of culture, which is the where I feel like the book Fierce Conversations, that's the image that comes to my mind, is that there's just as much value and greatness that comes out of creating a culture of no matter what, we need to communicate in a loving manner where, everybody is held accountable to the standards in which we say that we want. So I just want to throw that bit in there, that I think it happens more in maybe smaller teams than the bigger teams.
Definitely. You can love someone right out of the business. Yeah. If you love them, if you say, oh, I don't like confrontation, I just want them to, I just want to smooth things over, we just want things to be hunky-dory. Well, that's where dissatisfaction gets bred from too.
And resentment, right?
Acting up and you don't call them out on their BS, or they're not meeting the standards, or they're not meeting the goals that they set for themselves, you're not helping them in any way. So, oh, but I love them so much, I don't want to upset them. Guess what? They're going to go find something else to do because you're boring.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
Awesome. This was amazing.
It was fun.
I know.
Yeah. Super fun. And we're out of time. That was fast.
Looky there.
Right? Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. I think we're going to do this again next month, and we'll put up a poll of what you want to see or what you want to talk about next time. And it may even be how to have those fierce conversations, or it may even be the, transaction coordinators in-house or VA. Let us know what you want to talk about, and we will make a poll about it and see what topic wins.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for joining us.
See ya.
Okay, bye.